So we are going to move into now the next phase of the webinar, which is the panel discussion. And today we are really pleased to have 5 panelists with us. Of course, Mr. Law Chung Ming. We have Ole Anton Gulsvik, Jamie. We have Dr. Tan Puay Siew and Mr. Saw Kok Wei. Right. Just give you a little bit of information on the panelists. Mr. Saw Kok Wei is the President of Business Units at Jurong Port, a leading international multi-port operator in Singapore. Right? Dr. Tan Puay Siew is, she spearheads the Manufacturing Systems Division at SIMTech, including the Model Factory at SIMTech. She brings with her many years of ICT implementation with deep expertise in complex systems, Industry 4.0, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. Right. The next, I'd like to introduce you, Mr. Ole Anton Gulsvik. Ole is the CEO of 7 Seas Group. He has an engineering and banking background and has spent 10 years in the ship service industry. He is known as a change agent and drives transformation with passion. Last but not least, we have Ms. Jamie Ng. Jamie is the Director of Digital Transformation at Con-Lash Supplies. She's a second generation operator, and she leads the transformation initiative in the company. So thank you very much, all of you, for agreeing to be on the panel. And I also have asked for John and also Peter to be part of this as we end the panel. We will have John and Peter answer some of the questions that have been posted online, as well as questions that have been posted pre-webinar, right? So I just have John and Peter stand by. So to kick off the panel discussion, the topic today is strive, thrive, drive new business model in challenging times, right? So I think as ship suppliers, everything starts from being an attractive port for ships to come. So I think I will ask Kok Wei to maybe share with us, right? Because the port is an important part of the marine ecosystem. If the port is inefficient, if it's not performing, it is a poor condition, then ships will not come for any activities, right? So what is JP doing, or what steps have JP taken in transforming into a new business model during this challenging time so that it can stay relevant?
Right. Thank you for the question, Danny. As Chung Ming and Kenneth had alluded to earlier, Singapore is an important maritime hub, and especially for ship supplies, where about 65% of the vessels that come here are not carrying out cargo operations, but come purely to do bunkering, take on supplies, and to do crew change, right? So that's our market size. And the only way we can grow that market size is to be more efficient and to be able to turn around the vessels faster. And that is typically the Singapore story, right? We're not the cheapest in the world, but we give value by being extremely efficient, and that attracts people to come here. So in that spirit, Jurong Port, because we operate the 2 lighter terminals for the supply boats that carry supplies out to the ships at anchor, we are also working on how we can serve the community more efficiently and minimize inefficiencies. So in that light, we have recently completed the trials for what we call LT Connect, or Lighter Terminal Connect, that enables our customers to better match the arrival of the trucks carrying the supplies with the arrival of the supply boats at the lighter terminals. So we hope that would reduce waiting times, allow assets to be utilized more efficiently, and will increase the competitiveness of Singapore as a maritime hub. But that is just a start. And we're very happy to work with eGenie on Maritime 4.0 because we believe that this will drive even greater efficiency and increase Singapore's competitiveness. Right. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Kok Wei. So we hear a lot about digitalization being an important part of business transformation. So I'd like to ask Chung Ming with regards to is digitalization the silver bullet for companies during these challenging times?
Thanks, Danny. It's actually a very good question, and we usually get asked this question quite often as well. Well, personally, I think that digitalization is a very important bullet, but it is likely not the only bullet. Okay, so I think while it's important to embark on digitalization, it's also important to think about other things that will complement and synergize with the digitalization. One important thing is always manpower and talent. So I think as we embark on digitalization, let's not forget the impact to manpower. And if we do the digitalization well, the impact to manpower and talent will be very positive. But if we don't do it well, it can well end up to be negative. I give you an example. We have a lot of projects ongoing with our companies in the transport and logistics space. And many of them actually are thinking of using automation and using very advanced digital platform, or even things like RPA, AI type driven type of data entries in their operations. And this is well and good, and we encourage that, we support that, right? But I think usually we'll ask them the question, what's going to happen to your members of your team that was involved in this part of the work? What's going to happen to them? Are you thinking about, letting them go, or retraining them, or upskilling them? And we are very glad to hear that in fact, nearly all our companies, they will say that they will redeploy, reskill, and retrain them. And I think that's the way to go. Let's put it this way. In today's context, I just asked all you a simple question. How many young people do you find want to work in warehouses, or even the operational part of ship supplies? How many? I think most of you will say no. And if I ask you a further question, would you want your children to work in the warehouse, or even doing the ship supply boats operation and so on? You also, obviously, you will likely say no. So then the question is, as we transform, what does it mean for the jobs? So one important aspect that Enterprise Singapore always emphasizes is the complementary and the parallel track of developing the manpower. Because you can buy the best system, you can implement a best system, but if your people can't use it, or they do not want to use it, then everything comes to nothing. And a lot of projects fail, if I can say so, for those failed projects that we have seen, is because of the manpower issue. So I would say that digitalization is not the only silver bullet, but if digitalization together with other bullets, such as manpower development, and of course, your financial plans and so on, that will really give you that kind of edge that you need at this point in time. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Chung Cheng. So to put it in context, digitalization has to be coupled with a holistic approach towards future-proofing your business, if you lack of a better description. Great, thank you very much for your explanation, because I think it's not only software, but the hardware and the hardware, right? Also is you need to put all these together for a successful transformation in business. So I want to ask Dr. Tan, with regards to all these technologies are in place, how do you see A STAR and SIMTech's role in how businesses pivot to new business models to better manage these challenging times? What are your views?
Okay, I just have like to caveat this. I've been trying to promote digitalization full-time basically for the past 3 years since the launch of Model Factory. But COVID-19 basically is more effective for my 3 years of messaging. So it goes to show that real pain points that the industry face will give rise to much better understanding and the benefits of digitalization. So in SIMTech's role, we definitely have lots of ready technologies today for the companies to immediately adopt them, bite-sized, modular, to improve their current operations. But we are also developing midterm capabilities with eGenie, okay, and with the various government agencies to uplift the industry as a whole. So this is what we are hoping, that COVID-19 will provide the opportunity for companies to realize the importance of digitalization, but not just digitize for the sake of digitizing, but use it so that then they can do more with less, okay? And they then can rethink of new business models. For example, how can they go online, less reliant on physical means, okay? And how then they can servitize their businesses or their, for example, your logistics services, rather than just doing goods delivery. Can I couple it on with other things, and analytics capabilities and understanding on consumer needs, a specific company needs, for example. So we hope that they will take this opportunity, the whole industry as a whole, whether you're SMEs or MNCs, to digitize quickly, and then we'll work with them to help them pivot. And we are the research performer, if you like, so we can only help when companies want to do it, but we are here for them. Yeah, that's our key message. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Tan.
Yeah.
Ole, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, Ole. Okay, I just want to ask you, with this, as what Dr. Tan said, right, her effort to drive digitalization of businesses, all compressed, in this COVID-19 pandemic, so everybody's scrambled. How ready were you, digitalization-wise, in terms of managing this COVID-19?
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for inviting me also to the panel. So, Seven Seas is a global company, and we have businesses all around the world. And obviously, being a global business, digitalization is a very, very important part for us. And the communication also between all branches is extremely important. So I think, from a communication point of view, I think we had a benefit in the beginning because we were so used to communicate over different digital platforms already, using Teams, using different systems, automating our system, because our data flows between our branches and between the branches and out to the client and suppliers. So I think, looking back at COVID-19, I will not say we were super prepared in advance, but we were by default, because of our setup, we handled the situation very well, and we came in a situation where we didn't have any problems with our supplies or any problems with the communication between our branches, even though we couldn't really move and fly to each other and talk to each other. So, during this process, I think, we were pretty much on top of it, and we're pretty happy with how it developed during this process.
Thank you very much, Ole. I'll just cross over to Jamie, right? Jamie, being a SME in Singapore, did you face any challenges with digitalization, and how do you overcome these challenges? Maybe you can share with us.
Hi, everyone. So, obviously there were some, for us as a company, we are in the midst of a digital transformation. So, some of the challenges that we face are like the lack of knowledge and talents with digital skills. So it makes it difficult. This lack of inherent technological expertise, it makes it hard for us to create any kind of digital transformation roadmap. So we knew, even though we knew the problems that we wanted to solve, but we didn't know which solutions were the right fit for us. And even though there were a lot of off-the-shelf solutions, but all of these, they tend to work in silos, and it would have resulted in a very fragmented workflow for us, which is not what we wanted. Secondly, when it comes to digitalization, I think it involves a lot of capital, so that is one of our issues as well. And I would say mindset as well, because I think, as some of you have mentioned before, at the end of the day, digitalization is not just about the technology. It's not just about plugging something shiny and putting it into your business, but people are really at the heart of our business transformation. So if your people are not on board, then it's very hard to get anything done. So with anything that is new, or if there's any change, especially in a traditional business like ship supply, there are bound to be some level of resistance, maybe because of fear that their jobs might be replaced. So it's very important to reassure that technology is not here to replace anyone, but it's here to augment your job. to empower your workers to work more productively and creatively.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Jamie, for sharing. I want to go back to Kok Wei. Kok Wei, you have said early on that Jurong Port has already embarked on LT Connect and all this, and we hear from Jamie talking about having fragmented solutions. And I think we also see that there are numerous fragmented solutions, right? So they are not linked in any way, and I think for users it becomes very inconvenient. So how is JP working towards consolidation and having one single touch point, for lack of better description, in terms of how we can use the solutions that you're providing?
Okay, thank you, Danny, for the question. Jurong Port is in the privileged position that we are a central node through which all the supplies flow, the ship supplies flow. So we are able to work with all parties to consolidate the information and physical flows. And we are trying to put that into a single platform for everyone, so that the processes and the supply chain is optimized. So for example, one of the clashes, if you like, when delivering supplies to ships at anchor is bunkering, right? So you can't take on supplies while the bunker barge is there. So we envisage a platform where we take the information from other applications that are optimizing the deployment of the bunker barge. So we know when the bunker barge is going to be there, and then we integrate it together with the information we have as to when we know the supplies have been booked to go out to the vessel in question, and we try to optimize it and ensure that there are no clashes. So these are still early days, but that is conceptually what Jurong Port is trying to put together. We know we can't do it alone, but what we are trying to do is to play a coordinating role between all the parties involved, given our position in the supply chain.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kok Wei. Moving to Dr. Tan, Dr. Tan, a lot of times they say that the digitalization is high tech, low touch. Will this be applicable to the maritime supply sector?
Well, we want to make the technology easy to use. I think that is one of the key factors in any successful technology deployment. So we will have to work with the users here, okay? We'll hide all the complexity as much as we can. Well, for example, we have kept the Model Factory demonstrators very simple to use with apps, whether it's on a mobile device or on a screen. And we hide all the complexities in the background. So we intend to do the same with maritime, and we'll need all the users who are here today and more to tell us, how you want your interfaces to be, what it should look like, what it shouldn't look like, and we need the support of the industry to make this work, because sometimes we understand that your environment is hazardous, and it may not be easy to use certain devices, and that we also need your feedback. And we will work closely with eGenie and partners to get the correct interface and easy to use solutions out there. Okay, hopefully that answers your questions, Danny.
Yeah, thank you. Just a side note to all the people, all the participants of the webinar. If you have any questions for any of the panelists, including John and Peter, please just go to the Q&A segment, which is at the bottom of the Zoom, and then you type in your questions, and then we will cater time at the end of this panel to answer your questions. As I said earlier on, we also have received some questions from the attendees prior to the webinar, so we will address them at the end of this panel as well. So moving back to the panel, I have a question for Chung Ming with regards to localization or globalization. With companies adopting digital transformation during these challenging times, should companies continue to focus on localization, or also at the same time keep an eye on the globalization path?
Thanks, Danny. I personally feel that maritime is a global industry. And I think that whether is it bunkering, ship supplies, or broking, or agency business, I think in Singapore, we are very much global in perspective and also in operations. So as such, I do not see any strong dichotomy between localization and globalization. In fact, I feel that, of course, we have to strengthen our home base, which is in Singapore. And once we are ready, we should actually start thinking about how do we then strengthen our overall growth perspective, which is not just in Singapore, but also overseas. So I think today, right, we have seen many companies exploring. They started small by setting up a rep office, or maybe appointing reps, or even having partners first. But eventually they progress, they have their own operations. And many of the times when they have to set up physical operation, it happens because the customer wants them to be there. And of course, if your customer wants you to be there, you better be there. And we are very glad to facilitate such projects. In fact, we are in discussion with a few companies on this. A lot of their customers want them to be based in other ports outside Singapore. And we think it's important to be there. And actually, Danny, digitalization will help in all this. Because by the definition of digitalization, it is actually borderless. And it is limitless. It can transcend physical, boundaries per se. So actually, with a good digitalization that you have done in Singapore, it's actually perfectly very scalable, right? If you have designed it that way. And once you can scale it up, you can connect all the different so-called your nodes together, and you feed back to the so-called the mother node in Singapore with all the data and everything. And actually, you get a very good picture of what's happening out there. And you can manage your business better. And you can also reassure your customers that you can service them not just in Singapore, but overseas. And you have that necessary network in terms of the IT or the digital infrastructure to make it happen for them. Because they would also like to have that kind of visibility, that kind of tracking, that kind of traceability. So we do not see digitalization as very different from internationalization. In fact, digitalization should give a positive impetus to globalization. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Chung Ming. Thank you. Definitely agree with you. I think this is also Ole's point when I asked him initially, because they have a global presence. And if they are not digitally connected, then I think it's very difficult for him as a CEO to have overall control over the company. So, Ole, would you be able to share with us with regards to how you think as a ship supplier, a new business model for ship supplier will look like in order to thrive, right? I think the word thrive is pretty big, right? And to drive and to drive this new business model in these challenging times. What do you think? What is your view?
I think that ship supplies specifically, I'm more a believer in the evolution than the revolution. So the question is, how does this evolution look like? And I think what is special with ship size is a lot of complexity, and there's a lack of uniformity in general. And we need to find together solutions and work together as teams to reduce the waste of the administrative part of the process. And I think it's actually three ways you can look at this. First is what Peter Schellenberg talked about earlier. It's like the standardization, the coordinated efforts to standardize data and products. And this creates transparency and scale, and thereby being more competitive and more effective. I think this is possible for a certain part of the merchant fleet, but requires very good internal control, both from the supplier side, but also the clients. And the second is then more or less to merge functions, like embed the ship suppliers procurement teams into the client's procurement teams. But this is very, very difficult and has a significant internal political barriers. And then the third is then automate through digitalization. So because of ship supplying being very small part of the total OPEX of a vessel, but we are a huge part of the administrative cost of operating that purchase, then I think that automation through artificial intelligence and machine learning is the way forward to reduce the administrative work and reduce the waste in this and lack of efficiency we're doing. So, and I think this is like more an evolution where we find ways to work together to do the automation than a revolution overnight.
Great. Yeah. AI and machine learning is right up Dr. Tan's alley. So I'm sure, she'll be able to help guide the industry towards, being more efficient and more productive in what we do. Right. And I fully agree with you. It's administrative cost is humongous, and it's a big chunk of the entire operations. Jamie, I want to ask you, as an SME owner, what kind of advice would you give for fellow SME owners if they want to start to have to transform their journey, their digitalization journey, or to embark on the digitalization journey?
I think I would say a few quick points. Firstly, and importantly, to get in touch or work with the right industry partners. So this can help you ensure that you can maximize your investments and also to thrive in your journey. So for Con-Lash, we are very lucky to have been able to work very closely with A STAR, Enterprise Singapore, as well as BK in our ongoing digitalization journey. But of course, there are also many avenues out there like A STAR's Tech Depot and SME Go Digital by, I think it was IMDA, and of course like Enterprise Singapore. So secondly, I think it's also very important to have a goal in mind. It really helps to define what you hope to achieve, rather than just jumping on this bandwagon. For us, our vision was to leverage on technology to improve our customer service, which will in turn help us to grow our business. Because at the end of the day, digitalization is not an end goal in itself, right? It is really an enabler. So how we use technology and how we use data to really transform the way we do our business so that we can deliver more value to our customers. And I think my last point is, which we hear it all the time, to start with the low-hanging fruits. I think it's important to think about what is your biggest pain point, and start with that. So for us, for Con-Lash, we really sought to eliminate the very time-intensive and laborious task of processing our customers' request for quotation, and we use RPA to do this. So by automating this data entry process, we are able to immediately improve our employees' productivity by 75%. Like what used to take 2 hours can now be done in 30 minutes. So I think that quick wins also, it's very encouraging for your people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Jamie, I agree with you. As what Chung Ming has said early on, is about the people as well, right? If the people are not willing or they are not convinced, then no matter what you try to implement, it will not work. So, so thank you very much. In the interest of time, I want to keep the last 10 minutes for questions and answers. I think we do have got quite a few questions and answers here. John is there. John, since you're already there and I have not asked you a question that I don't do justice, right? So I just want to ask you one last question before we head into the Q&A. Many people talk about the shipping business being very relational. What's your opinion? In your opinion, is the shipping business a more relational business or a more transactional business?
Not a straight answer to that one, I don't think. As a ship manager, we are very much governed by being transparent to our client. I mean, we're managing multi-million-dollar assets and big operational spends every year, so we have to demonstrate that we manage that with due governance and control. So that's very, very important. That being said, where we have good, high-quality suppliers, knowing those suppliers well can often take a difficult supply situation and transform it into a success. So I think obviously relationships are important, but they've got to be subject to governance, which our clients expect from us. But, so yeah, I mean, it's a combination, I think.
Great. Yeah. So what you're saying is a relational business, but it has the transparency, the above board, transaction as well, right? So that everything is clear and that everybody is
very good governance about it. And,
yes.
But also, I think the question you also asked about transactional. In today, it's still very highly transactional. Tomorrow, and as time goes on, it's going to become less transactional because using things like AI and RPA, machine learning and all these things will inevitably come into the industry. It's already there. We're using RPA for some tasks today. So that transactional side will reduce, and then it becomes more from kind of, and I use the word fighting fires, not, I know everything is not a fire, but it becomes more from that kind of day-to-day transactional thing to more looking for problem solving together with suppliers, longer term projects.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. Thanks for accepting me putting you on the spot. But let's transit into the Q&A part. I think we, respecting people's time, maybe we'll do another extra 5 minutes more. But I would like to give the priority to people who have actually emailed in or sent in their questions prior to the webinar, and then we'll go back into the questions that have been posted just here during the webinar. As I said earlier on, if we don't have time to answer all the questions here, we will direct all these questions to the person that you have directed the question, and then we will give you an answer after the webinar. All right. The first question is from Mr. Lars Rosenkrantz. He has directed this question to Mr. John Beck. The question here is, are the benefits of better data flow and thus intelligence and data governance worth the effort of putting it in place?
From practical experience within Williamson Ship Management, absolutely. Having good data, you know, when you have 40% plus of free text items, how can you manage that? It's very, very difficult. Having put that rigor in place, we've found things an awful lot easier to analyze and manage. So for me, it's definitely worth the effort. But if you don't put the effort in to start with, you won't reap the benefits. So it's you know, you have to invest to get the rewards from it.
Okay, thank you. I hope Lars, you are still on, and if you have any further questions, trailing questions to that, you can post it on the Q&A. Next we have.
Good to find me as well, Danny. So you can...
okay. Lars, you know Lars, right? Okay, yeah. Right. Okay. The next question is from Mr. Robert Chung from Leader Marine. He has directed this question to Peter Schellenberger. If it is really necessary to have a new coding system instead of impar code for the supply industry, Peter?
Well, I did mention in the presentation that not only do we need to respect IP rights, but also we have said that we want to have a much extended description of features, which will help to identify not only the people who define the tenders, but also later on help to automate systems, handle those requests, and have them talk to each other. So the answer to this is simply yes. 6 digits do not describe sufficiently what we want to capture in these initiatives, and that please also do remember that we're not only talking about stores, but we also have to later on describe features of spare parts, which has a lot of additional elements, and we just want to make sure that our toolbox is fitted correctly and that it can serve all future needs. That's why.
Okay, moving on. This is Mr. Kumar. He has asked Mr. John Beck, what is the market outlook or trends in the ship supplier industry after or during COVID-19?
The market is difficult, of that there is no question. Certain sectors have been hit extremely badly, like the cruise industry. A number of ships have gone into layup. We all feel that very much. But what surprised, maybe it shouldn't surprise me, but what was really a fantastic thing was how everybody pulled together through COVID-19. So we didn't have any off-hires, we didn't have any major issues. Yes, we had some problems to solve for sure, but the whole industry came together very, very well to support each other during COVID-19. So shipping is cyclical. It goes through some deep dips at times, and you know, undoubtedly we're going to have a deep dip with COVID-19. The whole world is, but it will come back, and it's a resilient industry. Some tonnage will disappear and we've seen that in the cruise sector, you know. But some tonnage will disappear, but you know, I'm sure it's going to come back strongly. But you know, we're all facing COVID-19, and until we get a vaccine and understand exactly what we have to do to protect ourselves, markets will be more restricted, travel will be more restricted. So, yeah. But we have to stay positive. We have to look to the future.
Thank you, John. One more question from Germany is from Mr. Henning Weiser for John as well. John, you seem to be quite popular today. The question is, don't you think there is a risk for smaller suppliers as well as for smaller ship owners, managers, that the collection and use of big data is reserved for the big players?
No, I don't. The work that Peter has been leading on Work Package 2 is not restricted to big or small. We welcome all contributions. The benefit from being involved in that work and engaging in it to small players probably has a leverage effect. They probably get more benefit than others. So I would encourage, this is about getting good high quality data so that buyers and suppliers can communicate and transact more easily. That means lower cost and less effort. So from whether big or small, it's beneficial to all, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much, John. The last question actually that was posted prior to the webinar is actually from Mr. Desmond Lim from Jurong Port. He has directed it to Mr. Kenneth Lim, but unfortunately Kenneth has another meeting to attend. So we will send this question to Kenneth and get his response and send it back to Desmond from Jurong Port. So we'll move on to the questions that have been posted on the Q&A during the course of the webinar. The first question is actually from Sinwa Marketing. I assume this is Alex from Sinwa. Question to John Beck regarding IHM. Do declarations have to be provided for each line item? Must all line items be declared and also those which do not contain hazardous substances?
The way this is early days, and I welcome the industry's input to this, but the way I see it is that there's an indicative list. Chandlers tend to be traders, you know, they buy from suppliers. The indicative list needs to be shared with the suppliers, the prime suppliers, and they need to declare whether or not any of those these materials are within any of the products supplied. So the answer is no, you don't have to supply an MD or SDOC for every line item, and that we don't want to do that. But we do need to understand those line items that do need an MD and an SDOC. And as I said earlier in my presentation, I want to ask for it once only and not over and over again, because I recognise the administrative burden for everybody with this. But we've kind of been here before, guys. We shouldn't forget, you know, we've had the asbestos clause on our POs for many, many years, but that's kind of been forgotten about. So asbestos is in there for sure. So don't, you know, we have to treat it in the same way. But I think the difference with the IHM and the asbestos is that for each order that we're supposed to get an asbestos-free certificate. I'm sure we don't, but with IHM going forward, we need to have MDs and SDOCs for all items supplied that have materials in them from the indicative list, and that has to be pushed back to manufacturers. We need to get a clear understanding, because in my opinion, we will get port state control coming on board vessels asking to view the inventories, and if they find vessels to be deficient, there'll be detention. So we don't want that.
Okay, thanks, John. But you know, Alex still has got like 3 or 4 other questions based on this. But what I like to do is that take it offline and then have you write the answer and then share it with him, because I think it's all in relation to this matter. Moving on, let me see. Jackson Liu has asked a question. So far, what digital solution has A STAR developed that is suitable and can adopt by ship chandler to improve their productivity? So, so maybe Dr. Tan, maybe you just want to have a quick answer to.
Yes, I've actually put in the URL in the chat where everybody can see. You click on it, you'll get the technology booklet, and there's a list about 16, 17 technologies that you can take a look at, and happy to answer your questions offline if you have more. Yeah.
Something separate from the codes. Alex also has asked procurement or purchasing automations with highly defined items Pacific seem to be the way to go. I've heard names like Alibaba and Amazon as an example. However, the reality also shows that because of the nature of this way of buying or in selling, return rates have absolutely soared. Amazon claims between 5 to 15% of all items are returned. Return providers state a figure of 15 to 40%, Shopify 32, UPS 26. If that's part of nature of purchase digitization, could it potentially negatively affect the industry? Perhaps Peter or John can answer this.
Well, we are in a different space, of course. We have moving targets that we deliver to, and also we do not have an open market as much as we want to make it easier for the real world to transact with our vessels. But as you have learned, we are trying to define standards and catalogs. So that would mean there is a certain limitation to what we want to agree on as standards. So it is quite unlikely that if we help the vessels and the clients to make those choices, that the return rates will be high, because in our space, the return rates are usually happening when the expectations and the deliveries do not match. That is exactly the gap we want to bridge. So the better we explain items, the better we make it visible with pictures, and everybody understands what they're dealing, what they're going to be delivered. The number of returns would diminish. Every return, of course, causes a lot of manual work and cost in every sort of way for replacements and things like that. But it is not a real industry issue, but we want to diminish the problem further. I do not think that we have more than 3 or 4% returns for stores, I think. So nowhere close to those figures that you've heard.
Okay,
Danny, if I can add on, I also cover the e-commerce supply chain. So I think the question actually refers to B2C type of e-commerce operations. That means consumers like you and me, you know, our family members and so on. I think for a B2B industry like ship supplies, you are unlikely to see this kind of return rates because it's likely to be just, I would think it should be the same level as current processes, because you already know who are the customers and they would know the products very well, and it could be repeated purchases. So I think the context is slightly different. Yeah, so that will be more for the B2C space, where consumers like me or you then see an offer and we buy it, and then we realize, oh, we changed our mind and we want to return it. And the rules do allow us to return it. So that's how it works. Yeah. I think the context is very different.
Yeah, I would just like to add on to what Chung Ming is saying. As someone whose background is actually in retail, and I used to work for people like Nike, Timberland, I think you'll find a lot of these returns on e-commerce is actually for things you wear, apparel, because you think you're a size large, but it turns out you're actually a medium or an extra large, and then you return it to get the right size, right? So, and typically, I also know from the industry that you know, a size 9 UK shoe from one brand may be different from a size 9 UK shoe in another brand. You know, one you can wear, the other you can't, because the cut is different, right? So that's what contributes to these high return rates for e-commerce.
Our complications are a bit different. You know, for example, we try to cover in this catalog also, do we have 110, 220 volts? Do we need 50, 60 hertz? These are things that are often forgotten, you know, and those missing specifications, or if we need certificates for certain items as a must-have. So I think with this we can specify things much better and save time and effort.
Yeah, I think Alex also have some points. I mean, it's true that, you know, this is a B2B business, but at the same time, it's the captain and the crew that receives that, and that's consumers. So I think you have to look at it a little bit like that also. And the second is that now, even we are a B2B, we also have an extremely long tail in the product line, right? Which create also complexity, and there's so many involved parties in the delivery. And the same parties are involved in the return, right? You have the port authorities, you have the customs, you have the ship supplier, you have the client on 3 different levels, and then you have the sub-suppliers, and all this goes back and forth. So there are some extra complexity in our business, which is probably handleable, but it makes it more difficult to find projects and processes to work through.
So, Dr. Tan, from your expertise in AI and machine learning, do you think using these technologies will be able to then mitigate some of these challenges that we're talking about?
We are certainly going to try to mitigate, and we'll give it our best shot. And with the help of people like Peter and all, we are hopeful and vibrant that we'll make it happen. Yeah, at least minimize. Okay, if not totally eradicate.
I'm really mindful of the time. We are 10 minutes behind. But I think what I'd like to do is just to, if you don't mind, just answer two more questions. One is from Mr. Henning Weiser, and the other one is from Mr. Matheson. So Henning's question is, Peter, wouldn't it be a nice solution if you could choose IMPA code for, no, sorry, it was an earlier question that he posted. First question he posted is, your activities around the standardization catalog is of highest appreciation, even if they are not new. Will you also provide training for the users to change the mindset of future purchasing, especially purchases, as we do, for example? And then follow-up question is, wouldn't it be a nice solution if you could choose IMPA code for the item and add a speaking 6-digit as description? If not, it would not force all suppliers, customers who understand.
I think I get it, Danny.
Yeah. Okay.
So first of all, I would again answer with my wave. The more people jump on the train, the more we talk about it, and it's a chatty and very inclusive industry that we have. So we just need a couple of people who lead the way, and eGenie certainly has as a function also to provide material for everybody to understand what we're doing, exactly what we do today. That's only one of the tools of webinar that we could have. I also mentioned earlier, we are inclusive. So ISA is about to join us, for example, as a member as well, also with a seat in our council. And there may be areas where also at some point, eventually IMPA will agree that we cross-reference to the items, but we can't do that without them offering us. We're not begging them. We are just quite sure that the more traction we have, the more interested all stakeholders in the industry would be to be part of this. And we see that this trend is increasing. We're gaining a lot of interest, and we hope that this will continue. But we have to be mindful of legalities as well.
Thank you very much, Peter. Okay, the last question. I'm mindful again that they're taking away a lot of time. Just a last question from Mr. Matheson. We have owners mentioning in the RFQ that if we do not provide requested information to comply with the regulations, we will not get paid. Interested to know your stance on this. Perhaps John or Peter can answer this.
That's, to me, a very clear, that needs to be clearly understood between the buyer and the supplier. It's all about the scope of supply. If a supplier doesn't supply the correct scope of supply, then there is a contractual dispute. I mean, at the end of the day, that's just about good communication and normal procurement practice. When you make an offer, if that's one of the terms that you're making, you either have to put in your quotation, subject to, or whatever. That's, for me, that's just a kind of legal contractual issue between buyer and supplier. It's not an industry thing in my head. And Peter, by all means, give you a view.
No.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So once again, my sincere appreciation and thanks to all of you who have the speakers, the panelists, and the people who have signed on and have attended the webinar online. We just want to give you thanks. A word of thanks to Dr. Tan, Jamie, Kok Wei, Ole, John, Chung Ming, Peter, for taking time to attend and to speak and to share with us. I'm sure many of the participants will walk away with a lot of information. And again, I do apologize if we are unable to answer any of your questions. We will direct it to the person that you have asked the question to, and then we will get the answers back to you. Meantime, if you do have any questions with regards to what you've heard today, please feel free to contact the eGenie forum, and we will definitely get back to you with the answers that you're looking for. So once again, wherever you are, we wish you a good day, and thank you very much for taking time and spending this afternoon with us. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.